Please sit down. You are the most beautiful women in the room, but you fail to understand this is not a night off for us. Take a look around. This is not some game. You get noticed, and that gets us noticed. And us being noticed gets us all shot.
What is your mission?
Operation Anthropoid.
What is Anthropoid?
We are here to assassinate Reinhard Heydrich.
He's executed thousands.
Only Hitler is above him in the Nazi hierarchy.
Are you completely mad? You kill Heydrich and Hitler will tear Prague apart.
The question we have to ask ourselves is this. Is our country ready and willing to resist Nazi Germany? Gentlemen, this operation will involve almost everyone we have left in the resistance.
Armed ESCOM, 30 seconds behind.
30 seconds, 30 seconds.
If you're arrested, there will be no escape. Carry the cyanide capsules at all times. May God be with you.
Maybe it was a mistake not to inform you of the danger.
She's very young, still has romantic ideas about the war.
And you?
War is not romantic.
There's a problem.
What's going on?
It is your duty to stay alive and continue fighting.
If we fail, I fear freedom will be wiped from the map.
Hello and welcome to the latest and delayed film club, Anthropoid, starring Cillian Murphy and Jamie Dornan. It's the 2016 dramatisation of the Czech operation in 1942 to kill Reinhard Heydrich, number 2 in the SS. Joining me to discuss is filmmaker Tim Hewitt and historian Roger Morehouse, and as ever we have our awards to give out, including Best Scene, Best Performance and a new category, Most Useless Piece of Kit. Coming up, I've got Alice Loxton talking historical figures at 18 years old, and then our Operation Market Garden special with Saul David, Gordon Corrigan and Philip Blood in 2 episodes over the 80th anniversary. And we do a Bridge Too Far as our film club, but until then I'm going to hand you over to Roger, Tim and me talking Anthropoid. Roger, Tim, welcome back. This month we're talking Operation Anthropoid, directed by Sean Ellis, starring Jamie Dornan, who is hot right now, going through a hot phase, and Cillian Murphy, the gorgeous Cillian Murphy. And this is
favorite.
yes. He's got amazing cheekbones, Cillian. And this film is a depiction of the Operation Anthropoid that was the assassination of Reinhard Heydrich, who listeners to this podcast will know very well by now, particularly after our incredible, very successful podcast on conspiracy, where he was played by Kenneth Branagh. But I thought we'd start off, Tim.
Very successful podcast because I wasn't there on that one.
Oh yes, you weren't, were you?
That'll be it, Tim. Yeah. That'll be it.
I can see the trend.
Well, I'll start with you though, Tim, because you were greatly missed. But this film it was low budget, cost $9 million to make, and actually, I always like to do the money. It didn't make that much, made 5.3, and watching it, I actually thought the film was like a classic sort of 60s type film where basically they just do the operation. And there's
I think it was
around.
Both it's an asset and slightly I think it's a really good film, but a slightly a downfall because There are parts I think that drag, and I think that may be because it does nothing but the operation. It gets into a little bit of a relationship between the women and the guys on the mission. Funnily enough, I think we'll probably bring it up. There is another film that was made almost at exactly the same time. In fact, it was shot in the same year, in the same locations as this, which is the film The Man with the Iron Heart, that weirdly, I don't think has that issue as much as this film in terms of a slightly dragging feel, making it sound quite negative. But but I do think Anthropoid is a very good film. I can understand why maybe it didn't do as well as it could have done. The leads are names; they're quite famous guys.
Yeah,
but
even
they're
then.
not. Yeah, even then, but they're not. You know, like for example, Valkyrie was headed by Tom Cruise that we did last time. Is going to rake in the box office. It's purely based on that. I think that, you know, this was a very performance-led film. I thought the performances were really good. We should really say Oscar-winning Cillian Murphy now. But it felt a bit like a passion project by the director. I think it was really detailed, very masterfully honed. I thought everything was really solid in terms of its filmmaking. Just something that I felt a little bit with Valkyrie at the same time. If it had just an oomph factor, I thought it would have elevated it to another level. For some reason, what comes to mind is Munich, which we did on the podcast, which was thrilling, even though it sort of shouldn't have been. It was just a thrilling film. And I think if there had been a thrill factor to this, it would have been just slightly elevated to another level.
Tim, what could that have been? I know that's a terribly
it's a very
question.
difficult. I was thinking to myself, what would have this film been like had Steven Spielberg directed it? And you know what? It was weird because the attempted assassination scene is very tense and very
brilliant
and really suspenseful. And I thought it was really good. But I couldn't help think. Remember the scene in Munich where they are trying to get the bomb to go off in the apartment building, and the little girl comes back, and you see it from different points of views. And I thought to myself, that was so thrilling because of what Steven Spielberg did. And I just wondered what he would have done with this film, particularly the assassination scene. I do think the assassination scene was very good. But at the same time, I came away. I've seen the film quite a few times now, and I came away, and I still to this day think to myself, I can't remember every single thing that happens in it. Whereas in Munich, I can remember everything.
Yeah, I kind of thought that the first up until the assassination scene, it's kind of you're waiting. You want something to happen.
It's a slow burn.
But after that,
it's great. It should have been a slow burn. I think it should. You know, it's a highly important and thrilling mission in itself. Historically, and I just wonder what it would have been like in the hands of or even, I don't know, this is really radical, someone like Brian De Palma, whose suspense scenes, you know, are quite iconic. If you think of the train station in The Untouchables, or the train station in Carlito's Way, or Mission Impossible, even the first one, just what would have happened if it had been handled by someone who is a suspense master. Other than that, it's a thrilling. The story, the mission, the operation. Sorry, is you know, let's not take away the attention from the scene at the end. You know, that's pretty suspenseful as well. The whole church scene.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I really liked it. Again, I watched it when it came out, and then I rewatched it for this. And I sort of liked it all over again. And I suppose I mean, this is I suppose the beauty of doing this podcast with you, Tim, is that we have different perspectives on this, and they sometimes merge and they sometimes don't. But I mean, I look at films like that, and I think it has a really pleasing whiff of authenticity about it, right? So like all the clothes are dull, like none of their whites are white, you know, sort of Persil white, things like that. You know, all the vehicles are period, you know, the weapons are right, things like that. That's the sort of shit that I'm looking at. And
Yeah.
I look at that and I think, yeah, actually that they've really put some thought into this. And they also put a lot of thought into, like as you said, that build up to the mission. They put a lot of thought, I think, into setting the scene in terms of the tension between, the last members of the Czech underground in Bohemia itself, in Prague itself, versus the government in exile in London, which wants some sort of big result, to sort of burnish its credentials with the Allies and all that sort of thing, and is worried about, the passivity of the Czechs. So that actually, I thought a lot of that stuff where you say maybe it dragged a bit, they, again, with my historian's hat on, they were actually setting that scene, and I thought, again, with an admirable degree of accuracy. Things like accents were pretty good. The only complaint I would have actually was, surprisingly, given his body of work and otherwise brilliance, Toby Jones. I thought his accent was the only one that didn't really,
I agree. I do agree.
Didn't really work. He just sounded like a very rather clumsy version of a Czech accent. That said, don't ask me to do a Czech accent, but I'm not I'm not an actor. So I actually really liked it, and having watched it back to back with the other one, as you mentioned, the Man with the Iron Heart, I thought Anthropoid actually comes up a lot better. And it's it's a different film.
It's a different film, and I do agree with you in the sense that I think everything was very authentic. I also liked the way, like Ollie said, he felt it was like a 60s type of mission film.
And maybe that's why, sorry to interrupt you, but maybe that's why you felt there was something missing. Because filmmaking has all moved on, and what we expect from films has moved on.
It's sort of, it's not necessarily that I thought that something was missing. I like the way it was shot as well, by the way. I thought it was, I believe it was shot on film as opposed to, so it kind of had a grainy,
almost had a sort of sepia tone about it.
Yeah. And also just in those scenes in the conversations where they're around the table in the apartment about Czechoslovakia, the orders from London, it's blatantly shot with a handheld camera, which makes it slightly, just ups the tension a bit, which I thought, and their performances, I've got to be honest, are brilliant. I thought everyone in it was excellent. The one, it's not that necessarily I think there was something missing, but I do want to come away from it sometimes asking, we don't have the bad guy. Not that we need the bad guy, like a cops and robbers film, but it's almost like there's just more of a presence. Whereas I actually quite liked the fact that in The Man with the Iron Heart, you see him immediately, and Jason Clarke's great, I think, as an actor. I think he's brilliant. And when I actually quite liked the idea that you know who they're going for. Whereas a little bit, there's a non-entity in this.
That's very true. Yeah, it's very much about the mission, and Heydrich himself, I mean, barely features.
I didn't mind that actually, because
he's very two-dimensional.
I find this maybe a personal thing, just because Heydrich has been, having read a lot about him and knowing about more and more about him, particularly through speaking to you, Roger, is that he has built up in my mind this kind of horrific figure that I almost no depiction on screen, apart from maybe Kenneth Branagh, can meet what I've expected. And so I quite like the fact that they left him,
I did as well. Yeah, I did. I think it, concentrating on the mission, and it does it did it very well, because you had I mean, whether that, again, I don't know if it's historically accurate or not, but they had the whiff of, that one of my bugbears for modern films, characterization, which always seems to be kind of, honoured in the breach these days, all too often. But this film, I thought, with the two of them, the interaction between the two of them, and the panic attack. There's that panic attack scene that Jamie Dornan's character has. That, all right, if that's a sort of a rather crude sort of stand-in for characterization, whatever, it worked. And in contrast to the other film, there wasn't any of that. Right. I mean, I know the focus is different. The focus in the other film was much more closely on Heydrich himself, but it does also deal with, the assassination and everything that came after. But there's no fleshing out really of the characters of Gabchik and Kubish,
No,
the two
that I
assassins.
do agree with, and I thought they were brilliant. I really think they were great in this.
Yeah, I agree. I thought they were very, and that theme of the panic attack, and then he says, do your training, and they do that thing where they take the clip out of the pistol and sort of reload the bullets as part of the calm down, and then later on, Jamie Dornan's character is doing that with someone else in the church scene. He does that with one of the other fighters who's also panicking. Right.
Yeah.
I thought that actually that was very, very touching, and it worked very well. And as I said, if it's a stand-in for characterization, fine, because it worked.
Sometimes I felt that there were just a few incidents. Maybe it's maybe a mood thing. When for example, there are moments where I feel that they just the writers say that we need a suspenseful moment here, because it has been a lot of characterization, and the relationship with the girls is in the cafe where the women are sitting down, and a guy does kind of like what the guy does in Heat when Pacino's surveilling De Niro, and it gives them which was a true story, but this may have been true, but it just felt like, this guy nudges something, and it creates a noise, and the Nazi officer looks to the other room in the cafe, and then the women distract, and I just felt these are slight devices to create tension, where whether that had a lot of relevance to the story, I'm not sure, and it felt like it just needed some like little points through the film where, well, look, we need a suspenseful moment to keep the audience on edge.
So it needed a bit more of that, you think?
Well, I don't know whether I actually don't know whether they were necessary.
Oh, I see.
Because the showstopper is the assassination attempt, at least midpoint.
Yeah.
Which it sort of stands out, I think, quite markedly in this film. That I don't know if we needed little vignettes of, I don't know, like as if they're about to potentially going to get caught. Because
would you go to a cafe with a whole load of Nazis if you were wanting to keep it?
I'm not sure. I think it's inherent in the story that they could get caught at any moment. I mean, we knew, Roger, you probably will know this more than anyone. The Nazi presence must have been pretty rife.
Yeah.
And I'm sure people were on edge. They must have. Well, I mean, I'm assuming they were. So there must have been, throughout the whole film, there is a sense of these guys they knew they were that they parachuted in, did they not?
Yes. I mean, they were in theatre for the best, I think, for 6 months before, which show. I mean, that's in a sense, if you're going to be, I mean, they don't have to be true to the narrative, but there's a lot of kind of everyday life in 6 months, even if you're plotting an assassination.
I thought the scene in the nightclub, when they first go out with the women, and Murphy says, you wear lipstick, you're going to draw attention. I thought that was quite suspenseful.
That was good. Yeah, I like that.
And I really liked the way they were. And he says, "Slap me," and you do get these little looks from the officers in other tables.
That was
I thought that was actually better than the cafe scene. I'm not sure the cafe scene was necessary, but
Roger, I wanted to ask you. So this operation is instigated by the Czechs in the government in exile, and so how did that decision get reached? Because presumably the objections you see on the ground in Czechoslovakia, that there'll be reprisals. You don't need these sort of big ticket assassinations. We're doing perfectly well without you lot. I mean, presumably those concerns would have been was the overriding view in London that they just needed something big, regardless of an actual sort of military.
To some extent that was exactly right. That the Czech resistance was much more limited, much smaller in scale than the Polish resistance, for example, at this point. So this is the summer of 42 when they launched the assassination. So all the deliberations of this would have been going on in 41. Bear in mind that the Polish resistance is, up and running, is a much bigger organization. Poland is sort of front center among the ranks of the Allies, if you like. This is prior to the Americans coming into the war in 41. So in a sense, the Czechs are sort of poor relations in that relationship, right? And there's a desire. There's two overriding concerns here. The first one is that they need to sort of burnish their credentials, the government in exile, by promoting something, some action in the homeland that would further the Allied cause, right? So a high-level assassination is probably, from that respect, is a good idea. And secondarily, there was a concern. Now, there's a very big difference in terms of the occupation regime between Bohemia and Poland, right? Poland is absolutely brutal, exploitative. The Poles are literally expendable as far as the Germans are concerned. The Czechs are seen by the Germans racially, and remember, everything goes through a racial lens in Nazi Germany. The Czechs are seen as lapsed Germans, right? They're seen as as sort of Slavicized Germans. So in a sense, there's a racial long-term plan to Germanize them again. Whereas the long-term plan of the Poles is basically, to reduce them to sort of slave status and ultimately starve half of them to death. The Czechs have a sort of rather gilded, more gilded position within the racial hierarchy. Not quite the same as the Italians and the French, who are seen as nations of consequence. The Czechs are just sort of our brother Germans who have been Slavicized by circumstances. So the occupation regime is geared towards some degree of conciliation with the Czech people, which means, of course, being very hard with the Czech resistance, but creating conditions for the Czech people where they work, and that of course you've got the Skoda works and you've got other industries in that area, which are very vital to the German war machine. Creating decent conditions for the workers whilst at the same time ruthlessly crushing the resistance. So it's a quite curious occupation sort of constellation, if you like, in Bohemia. And what the government in exile in London wants to do, secondary to that ambition about burnishing its credentials, is to disrupt that, right? Is essentially to provoke the Germans into some sort of massive thing which will disrupt that rather cozification of relations in Bohemia. So it's quite a complex thing that's going on. It doesn't fit the sort of the standard rubric of as we understand occupation regimes in Eastern Europe. It doesn't fit that at all.
So with Heydrich,
that's what the government in exile is trying to disrupt.
So with Heydrich in his relatively new role, I think he's appointed quite soon after Wannsee, isn't he?
Yeah.
As protector of what's the governor of the protectorate?
Reichsprotector of Bohemia and Moravia. Yeah, that's his title. Yeah.
Now, is that quite a fancy job? I mean, is because he is sort of basically number 3. Is it Hitler, Himmler, then Heydrich? Is it?
Yeah, basically. Well, he's number 2 in the SS. Yeah. So
right.
It depends how you would sort of count the
it's difficult to rank them.
It's a bit difficult, but within the SS, definitely, he is Himmler's deputy. So he's absolutely one of the most senior Nazi players at this point. And his
juggling his. Sorry to interrupt you again. Is he juggling his Holocaust work with his governorship?
Yes, he's got various hats. So he's head of the SD. He's head of the Reichssicherheitshauptamt, which is like is the sort of umbrella organization of all police organizations in Germany. So he's got various hats, and as you say, he's also got his coordinator of the Holocaust hat, which he had from
which I actually thought was quite well briefly covered in The Man with the Iron Heart. You see him doing these different In fact, you see brief
Is
glimpses.
he doing a Tom Cruise in Minority Report?
Yes, he's
Yeah.
motion gesturing.
Yeah.
You see a glimpse of conspiracy, in fact, in that film.
Yes,
Like
you
there's
do.
just one scene where you
Yeah.
see them at that meeting.
Yes.
Um,
In a ridiculously oversized building.
oh
To
really? I
just
didn't.
my historian's
Yeah.
radar was ticked off there.
What I was kind of getting at with those questions was that whilst you could see why the Czechs on the ground don't want this sort of big ticket assassination because
yeah.
it's right pain, yeah. But the government in London, or the government in exile in London, it's still going to be a big impact on the Nazi leadership if they take out Heydrich. I mean, this isn't just for show, is it?
No, absolutely. And this sort of fits with, the new ethos of sort of fighting with the underhand methods of the SOE, from set Europe alight and all that sort of thing. Using assassination. So this would absolutely have been, and was, if you look right through the history of World War II, this is the highest level assassination that was carried out by SOE, without question. So this was a big thing, and I talk about this a bit in I think we talked about it a bit when we talked about killing Hitler, that the British military establishment and political establishment really wrestled with this. SOE was very unpopular in senior British circles because it was seen as fundamentally un-British to send assassins to and saboteurs and so on. That wasn't kind of how Britain tended to work and tended to see itself. And then of course there's the much more practical concern of what follows. People knew that there would be massive retaliation from the Germans, as indeed did happen. And that's something that I think this went rather light on. So we know it ends with the church scene, which is I mean spectacularly well done, but it doesn't talk about what follows, and what follows is absolutely horrific. So that was all that once that was known. I mean, that's why this was the only high level assassination that was attempted. Is because the threat of those retaliations was just so great that those in charge said, well, we can't do that again. That's insane.
Yeah, it's depressing.
It's quite remarkable, actually, that there's basically two guys who were parachuted in. I mean, it's quite a undertaking for two chaps.
Well, they meet up with some colleagues.
I mean, they're the guys. Yeah, they're the guys. But it's. I mean, the film primarily focuses on Cillian Murphy and Jamie Dornan. Even their scout, the way they scout the place, and you just think, like, having seen, for example, the film we did Valkyrie a few weeks ago, you'd think that there'd be this mass of people that London has organized in actually carrying out the assassination. But it's pretty. I suppose it's got to be covert, but it's remarkable that the two main players. It's just two main players.
Yeah. And actually, I mean, it was intended that they would sort of find succor and support from the Czech resistance, right? And this is why I thought that came across quite well, that the Czech resistance, who are pretty much on their last legs. I mean, I think that they mentioned briefly these three kings, and that was the sort of three guys that ran the Czech resistance. Two of those three kings had already been eliminated by the time. Actually, one of them in the spring of 42. So by the time the assassination is attempted, two out of the three have already been killed by the Gestapo. So they're really kind of on their last legs. So that these two guys turn up, Gabčík and Kubiš turn up and say, "Oh well, our mission is to assassinate Heydrich," and the resistance kind of goes, "You what? Like, you must be mad. They'll kill us." And that's exactly the attitude, because they knew they were already under the cosh with Heydrich, and they knew damn well what would follow. And I think the film actually kind of brought that tension out really quite well.
And I presume that the two SOE, Gabčík and Kubiš, are they do okay. It's played with a sort of this grim determination from the two,
Mm.
which presumably the two guys were exactly like that, because you can't do an operation like that without this. It didn't matter what the local resistance said; they're going to carry out their mission.
Yeah. Yeah, and that, bear in mind, I mean that that it doesn't show it in this film. They've been through SOE training, which was pretty bloody rigorous and pretty brutal. They would have been plucked from ordinary Czech soldiers that had got west in sort of 39, 38 and so on. But then having been through that training, they were some rather thoroughly trained assassins by that point. So there would have been an absolute degree of steel to them. Yeah, absolutely.
Which actually shows, I thought, it's done really well.
Yeah,
through their performances from the very beginning. When they land and then they're taken in that farmhouse, and then they know immediately they're going to be betrayed.
Yes.
And they're pretty. I mean, that was lucky actually that Cillian Murphy went into the other room.
Yeah,
and saw the guy on the phone. He was like, oh.
Yeah, I didn't actually like that scene.
He didn't.
No. I mean, we can get it. Why don't we get on to our best scenes? Because then we can get all this out. So we'll start with best scene. We've got our categories: our best scene, most inaccurate scene, best performance, best supporting. And I'm introducing a new category, which I hinted at last time, is that most useless piece of kit. And most useless piece of kit. Okay, right. So let's start with best scene. Now, I had a few. I mean, I think the assassination.
Yeah, I mean,
brilliant.
The assassination is brilliant. The church scene is brilliant at the end.
Yeah, absolutely, church scene. I think the torture of the traitor, but before that, when the Gestapo appear at the family that they've been staying with, that scene is so
that's good as well.
Edge of the seat stuff, and the way they treat the mother, and she's wonderful in it. The actress who plays the mother.
Yeah,
I had a name written down somewhere, I think. Where has it gone? Alena Mihulova, who is a Czech actress.
Yeah. I would just throw in again. I mentioned it already, but I would throw in that panic attack, because I think that served a sort of narrative purpose in, as I said, in characterization and so on. And I found it, again, I suppose, just what we were just saying about them being sort of hardened assassins and the rest of it, and being steeled for this, which they undoubtedly were. But then that one of the characters, can then, have what seems to be a massive wobble, to give it a modern term. It's very human. It gave a tremendous humanity to it, and I thought it's only a very short scene, but I thought that was really quite affecting. It stuck in my mind.
Okay, well, I mean, it's going to be difficult for any of those. Well, that scene to, I think, trump at either the assassination or the church. I thought the church was absolutely incredible.
Yes, I would agree.
Because the church is and it sort of prolongs. It keeps you. It doesn't let you off the hook. If you know what I mean.
And they're using the real guns. It sounds like the real weaponry that was used at the time.
Yeah.
And so the narrow corridors when they go up the thing, and you're like, oh no, you're not going to get. This is terrible.
You're not coming down again.
No.
No, I would. Yeah, that was a fabulous scene, and it really does. It builds the tension and maintains the tension very, very well, until, of course, the grim denouement.
Yeah, and the assassination scene, Roger. I mean, from what I've read, it seems pretty accurate, actually. I mean, the bloody Sten gun jams hint for the later award. Yeah,
absolutely. So, I mean, that's it does seem accurate. I mean, your next category that you mentioned about inaccurate scenes, I'm a little bit coming up with nothing. I'll be honest. I didn't.
Okay, well, we need to settle on a best scene before we get to that. So, should we go for? What are we going to go for? Assassination, church. I'm going for church. I thought the church blew me away.
I think the church. I would go with the church.
Yeah, let's go with that. It's great. It really is the climax of the film. It's very well.
How much? I just very, very quickly, as a sort of little aside, had the gun not jammed?
Yeah.
Now he would have been. I mean, he died anyway. But I was wondering what difference that would have made had they killed him immediately. He probably wouldn't have been shot, or maybe he would have been. I don't know. but the not Heydrich, the surnames escape me.
Gabchik and Kubish.
Yes.
Yeah.
Had he been shot, Heydrich been shot immediately, killed immediately, do you reckon that would have made much of a difference with the impact, the aftermath? I mean,
that's a good question.
Apart from there being drama,
yeah. I mean, obviously there's a drama. He lasts for about a week afterwards.
Yeah,
and he initially rallies. He has a couple of operations and so on. I think that the problem was that a piece of shrapnel went into his back and up into his spleen. So he had his spleen removed, and
it took a bit of horsehair from the
supposedly it took horsehair through the car seat and up into his spleen, and he ultimately dies of septicemia, blood poisoning. But he was fairly lucid. I mean, through most of that week, various operations, and looked to be rallying, and then obviously the septicemia set in. So I suppose from a Nazi perspective, if we're allowed to have a Nazi perspective, there was a sort of a will he, won't he kind of tension about Heydrich's survival. But I don't really think it would have made that much difference to what follows. I mean, had he just been shot, with the Sten on the day and killed, I think you would have had the same kind of response. I think it was just the fact that he'd been assassinated was the kicker from that perspective. There was an element here as well. You see this in the German reaction to Polish assassinations of senior Germans, which they do. There's a famous one in 1943 of a chap called Kuchera, who was the SS chief of Warsaw. And the Germans go very, very hard. And they go after the assassins very, very hard. And it's almost as though the act of assassination, or the act of an attempted assassination, is seen as kind of an affront to their sense of dignity. How dare these people try to do this to us? It's that sort of attitude, right? So yeah, it's just the fact that he's killed is the kicker. How that happened, I think, is immaterial.
Right. Okay, well, we'll move to most inaccurate. Now, yeah, it sounds like we don't have too many, but I was thinking, it just seemed weird. I don't know if this is true or not, but the first, that when they arrive, where they parachute in and they go and stay with the locals, I mean, they do pick a couple of people who betray them straight away. But it seems a little bit too convenient for the plot for that to actually be true in reality.
Yeah, perhaps. I don't know. They would have had, you'd think they would have had a network of sort of safe houses and contacts and so on. Whether they're just sort of pitching up at a random house, I agree that would be rather careless of them. But yeah, okay. Well,
or in the cafe where the guy makes a noise. Just annoyed me slightly.
Yeah, you're going back to that one, Tim. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I'm willing to go with that, Tim, because obviously it means a lot to you.
It's the not freeze.
And then you knock something over.
Standard look from the Nazi officer to the new. Is kind of a bit. I thought it was a. It was a.
Okay, we'll go with that.
A clumsy plot device.
Scene in cafe. Scene in cafe. Okay, right, great. Next, we're going to do best performance. So, I mean, really, the two leads. I guess we have to pick one of the two leads.
I think I'll going with Cillian Murphy all day long.
Yeah, me too. I think he's
great,
particularly right at the end. His final.
Not taking anything away from Jamie, but it's what seethes under the surface in Cillian Murphy, which he always does brilliantly.
Yeah, there's an intensity there.
Yeah, it's like you can see the passion that's driving him. That there is nothing that's going to deviate from this mission. It just sort of emanates from him. I think that's very impressive.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, Cillian wins again.
Oh, yeah, second time.
Yeah, he's a double winner of the Aspects of History.
Has that ever happened before?
Don't think it has.
I don't think it has.
We must inform him.
Yeah.
Scene. Yeah. Well, I don't know how. Yeah, we'll have to get him on at some point to receive his. We'll have to
actually. Has he won anything for this
I don't. This
I don't-
didn't win a thing. I mean,
No,
okay,
it really didn't,
harsh.
did it?
It won some Czech awards, and there's some Czech actors, and obviously
Mm.
the Czech subject matter. I think it won some film awards in the Czech Republic, but and this will speak to our legacy rating. I think the fact that two films of the same subject come out within a few months of each other or 6 months of each other or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite.
Who made the
Unusual.
decision to make pretty much similar film at the same time? It's like buses with this, isn't it?
Well,
I don't know if you
different- I
watched
think
Operation
different-
Daybreak in the 70s, which I did, which is a film directed by Lewis Gilbert, who had directed some Bond films. And it stars Martin Shaw and Anthony Andrews and an American called I can't remember. But I thought that was very good as well. But
Martin Shaw.
yes, this has been made. This operation has been made quite a few times, but two within a short space of each other seems.
Yeah, I think both. I mean, it's probably on the back of the Man with the Iron Heart, definitely, because it's kind of a dramatization. But they're on the back of the success of that HHHH book.
Yeah,
Laurent Binet. So which was a kind of surprise literary hit. So I think it's probably on the back of that, because it didn't fall on an anniversary or anything like that. So I suppose you could argue the Man of the Iron Heart was released around what would have been the 75th anniversary. I'm just thinking about it. But no,
I think Iron Heart
was on the back of that.
Came out sometime after it was completed, even though they were both shot in the same year.
Yeah, they delayed it because of the of Anthropoid. Yeah,
it must have been strange, because the locations I think they used were crossed over.
Yeah,
in the same year, and so Prague must have been like they're still shooting, or they're shooting two films about this.
Yeah,
a little bit weird, really, but
yes,
it must be quite horrible to have someone wandering around Prague dressed up as Reinhard Heydrich.
Yeah,
yeah, you think, yeah,
twice.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So we're going to go with that cafe scene. Best supporting performance. Now I have my two. I have three.
Go on.
Two. I loved Anna Gaslarova.
Yes.
Who played the red-headed girlfriend?
Lenka.
Yes, she's really excellent.
I thought she was great.
Really good.
Yeah, and again, she had a sort of depth, and intensity to her as well. I liked her performance. I liked the role as well. I thought she did really well.
Very skillfully dismantles the gun.
Yes, that was a great scene.
Yeah,
that was a great scene.
Clean.
They're just, do you think we're just sort of stupid little girls? And then she picks up the pistol, and while she's talking, she sort of strips the gun. I thought that was a great scene, and says, "Oh,
well, that's important.
Clean your weapon." Yeah, exactly. Of course, it's important for the plot.
She says you haven't cleaned your gun.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
It's a hint to what happens in the... So he ignored her? What bloody women?
Well, yeah. I mean, look, Stens were notoriously unreliable anyway.
Yes.
They just were. So I can see that in terms of a plot device, it works very well, but probably wasn't that. It was probably just a Sten being a Sten.
The other nomination is Elena Mihulova, another Czech actress who played the mother.
Yeah, she was great.
Yeah.
And when the Gestapo come in, that's kind of when she won it for me. She was just so good in that scene where they're, it's a heartbreaking scene, that. And then I thought Harry Lloyd was really, really good as their kind of comrade.
Adolf
fights in the church.
Oh, Opalka.
Yeah, Opalka.
Yeah. I have to say I agree with the mother, but I couldn't see. When I was watching it, I couldn't really see beyond the Lenka character. I thought she was brilliant. She stuck in my mind.
Okay.
So
yeah,
that would be my choice.
I would go with her as well. I thought she was awesome, and that just because the relationships were actually quite developed.
Yes.
Between the guys and the women, and I thought that was they could have avoided that not altogether, but they could have kind of put that onto a little sideline, and I thought it was really good. I thought the women were really good. I thought both were really good, but I think you're right.
Okay, good stuff. Anna Geslarova wins it then. Right, we've done most inaccurate. So now we're going to do our new category, which is most useless piece of kit. So the listeners, I'm sure, have worked out that it's
This is going to be an
bloody
interesting
Sten gun.
category. It's going to be an interesting category if it's in every film podcast. Just randomly, suddenly, like a useless piece of kit.
There's always something that doesn't work. Yes, with historical films, normally there's something riding on something quite important. So
Okay.
generally, I think we'll get away with it. We'll be okay. We'll be okay for our next one, which is Operation Market Garden. A bridge too far.
Bridge
You
too
might
far,
have the
you
same.
mean?
You might have the same thing. I mean, the most
think it'll
obvious
be-
useless piece of kit is the Sten gun itself, surely.
Yeah, I think it's the Sten gun. Although
No,
there is a slight.
His gun jams, but then he throws. What are the sequences of event?
Jamie Dornan character throws
He's behind the car. Yeah.
throws the grenade.
behind the car. Okay.
And
No, it
he's
has-
trying to, the bloody thing won't work, and he's sort of he had it under his raincoat, and he was sort of loading it under his raincoat. So there's a hint that maybe that's down to it. Might be
Oh, a bit of fluff, maybe. Bit of lint got in there.
I know, surely fucking gun can deal with that. And then and then there's the hint that maybe he doesn't clean his guns very well, but still, I think he
But it's
probably.
a Sten, let's be honest.
Yeah. Do you think he would have thought, oh, I won't bother cleaning it. It'll definitely work.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to listen to that silly girl. So
Yeah, no, I don't think I think he would have cleaned the gun absolutely perfectly, and it just didn't go off. Okay, so the Sten gun wins the most useless piece.
That was
it does
easy.
Look quite cool though.
It's invented
look good.
the category
It does look good.
because of the gun jamming. You should have the most useful piece of kit.
Well, then that would be the grenade, I suppose.
Yeah.
Grenades. There's a lot of grenade action in this film. I was impressed with that.
Yeah.
I liked it when the Germans brought in, massive boxes filled with stick grenades.
Yeah.
And then hurled them around with great abandon. And I thought that, that whole fighting scene in the church was it just seemed
It was
really
very intense. It was very
sound
intense.
of that massive machine gun. What's the name of the machine gun, Roger?
That was an MG42.
MG42. Look at that knowledge. Yes. So
which was an absolute beast of a weapon as well. I mean, that would have terrified them. Apparently, they still use
the sound within the church.
I was told that they still use them at Sandhurst. I don't know if this is true.
Really?
New recruits they use them. They sort of fire above their heads. They walk along this walkway where they're safe, but that it's firing above their heads to get used to the bullet impacts and the noise. I mean, the noise of those things. So yeah, it was the archetypal sort of German heavy machine gun, and it was a monster.
I once spent a few days with an army regiment because I was thinking of joining the army, and they had a GPMG, a general purpose machine gun.
Yeah. And
we all had to load it, and I was so weak I couldn't pull the. It was useless.
Oh. But,
oh God!
Is that when you changed your mind?
Sorry,
was that when you changed your mind?
Is that when you changed your mind? Actually, you know
exactly.
what?
It was
I'll
like
become a historian instead. It's much more easy.
More oil or something.
I like it.
Yeah. Well, maybe I would have just got someone to do it for me. I mean, that.
Well, yeah, a Batman.
Yes, your butler.
Right. So I think this moves to legacy rating. So so it didn't make much money in the box office. It made more than The Man with the Iron Heart. The Man with the Iron Heart only made $4.4 million. This one, Anthropoid, made 5.3. And A Man with the Iron Heart cost 32 million to make, whereas this only cost 9 million. And with all those production values, Roger, that you mentioned, I think clearly. I think it should be remembered more than The Man with the Iron Heart.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I think in terms of putting the assassination on the map for a new generation and doing it in a historically sympathetic and, as we can see, reasonably accurate way, I think that's a real service. I think that is a legacy.
I think it's more like The Man in the Iron with the Iron Heart was a little bit more grander in scale because of the two the two story threads.
Yeah.
Heydrich and then the other guys. So I think that would evidently increase the budget because there were more locations. This is a little bit more concentrated.
Yes, that's true.
In and around.
It is basically Heydrich's life, with the assassination and then what follows sort of clicked on the end. Yeah, absolutely. It does, just to mention the other one, the one absolute benefit that it has is the luminous Rosamund Pike in it, who is just absolutely adorable.
Yes,
even if she's playing a Nazi, she's still adorable. So Anthropoid doesn't have that, unfortunately.
And Cillian Murphy's and Jamie Dornan's fees must have been relatively low for two leads in a film.
Yeah.
For the fact that the budget was 9 million. I think, they would
I wonder why they did it.
Well, I'm assuming that it's that they were attracted to. They were great roles, really. But they are leading the film,
and they did very, really, really well. So I think in terms of legacy, absolutely. What was it out of 5? Was it? I can't remember.
Out of 5,
I think it probably did. It probably did. It sort of built its momentum. Probably, I want to say home video, but that didn't exist.
Well,
but probably streaming and.
I was going to say in preparing for the 5 minutes of prep that I did for this, I did notice that the man with the Iron Heart fell foul of the whole Me Too thing because it was a Weinstein picture, and it was never released in the US apparently because Weinstein's company went bust as a result of everything that happened in 2017. So that rather would have hit their bottom line, I imagine. Never released in the US.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's remarkable, actually.
Yeah.
And it's got a lot more. Well, it's got fewer, if any, Czech actors. I mean, all the Czechs are played by Brits and Americans.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
that's true.
I then we'll give it a good 2. I think a 2 out of 5. Or am I being a bit harsh?
Oh no, I'd give it a bit
3?
more than that. Yeah.
3 out of 5.
Yeah. Well,
it's on Amazon. Doing well on Amazon.
It is. I think that it's increased recently in its popularity. But I think a few years ago, a lot of people, if you'd said Anthropoid, people kind of slightly question, sort of like a bit of a sleeper.
Yes.
No,
I agree. I think it sort of put it on the map a little bit. And there was a very good book about it a few years ago now. I'm desperately looking on mine.
Is it called The Forgers?
Yeah, there was that one as well.
The assassination comes up in your book.
Yes, it does because I was saying about the reprisals afterwards that that kicked off a step change in the Holocaust, right? So it's very, very significant in a sort of a much broader sense. You've got Lidica with this comes up in the it's mentioned in the Man of the Iron Heart. They talk about the destruction of Lidica and there's another village called Ležáky which was destroyed. All the inhabitants of those two villages were murdered. And in addition, something like 5,000 Jews are basically pulled out of the concentration camps and shot. Because to the Nazi mind, any setback ultimately has to be, it doesn't matter who's done it, but ultimately has to be laid at the door of the world Jewish conspiracy, right? That's the way they thought. So in the aftermath, and I use a quote, there's a quote from Goebbels who talks about the assassination of Heydrich after he dies, and then and says in the next sentence, we will avenge ourselves against the Jews. So that's exactly how they thought. And there's as I said, there's a step up in massive step up in the Holocaust killings, in the establishment of the death camps. You've got the 3 what were called Reinhard camps named after Heydrich, one of which was Treblinka, which killed 900,000 people. So basically, this is a massive step up in the Holocaust in the aftermath of this. So it's absolutely very, very consequential.
Well, I guess that is a good way to end our chat today. So for listeners, if they want to get hold of Anthropoid. It is on Amazon at the moment. I don't know how that is impacted by regions and stuff like that. But and then of course you can read about context behind it with Roger's book, The Forgers. But Tim, thank you very much for your insight today. Roger,
Thank you.
as ever, thank you.
Thank you, Ollie. Thanks, Tim. Great to see
Thanks,
you.
Roger. See you
See
soon.
you soon.
Thanks so much for listening. Plenty more great content on the way, so please do subscribe or follow. And if you can give a generous rating, I'd be grateful. But in the meantime, thank you and good night.